Yes. Good evening to everyone today. We are happy to have you all here. It looks like it is a very great audience that we have today here. So we're glad that everyone can make it today. So as I was sitting there, I was looking at everyone, and I could start feeling the energy of students, teachers, parents, organizers, and so we are happy. Thank you for coming and joining this great celebration of the top 47 schools in the Bay Area. Okay? My name is Maritza Leal, and I'm a parent leader with Innovate Public Schools. I have 3 kids. 2 of them are already attending to some of these incredible schools that we have here today. I am glad and I'm happy, and I feel confident to say that my kids are getting prepared for college, and not just college, but for life. I say this with pride because being a parent leader with Innovate Public Schools has empowered me and others to fight and identify what is a great education as parents, what we want for our children. Thank you. And I want to personally congratulate the 47 schools that we have here today, and they are showing and proving that this work can be done, and that together we can make sure that our kids, all of our children, get in the right path to college. Thank you so much. And I would like to introduce Matt Hammer, which is the CEO and founder of Innovate Public Schools.
Thank you. Thank you, Maritza. Thank you for all of your amazing leadership and around the Bay Area. So good evening. What a pleasure to be with everybody this evening to recognize really the amazing work of so many of you in the room who are part of these top schools in the Bay Area for low-income Latino and African American students. Y'all are showing what's possible, as Maritza said, leading the way, proving that all our children can succeed at a very high level. I have so much respect and appreciation for your hard work, incredible dedication, and extraordinary results that you're having with so many kids. So thank you very much. And maybe if everybody could just stand, and let's give you all a big round of applause. Please stand up. Thanks. All right, so before we go any further, just want to give a big shout out to Microsoft for providing this meeting space for us and being such a generous host of this annual event for us. And then also a big thank you to the most amazing staff of Innovate who put on this event. So that's Carolina Echeverria, Carol Hedgespeth, Sierra Jenkins, Adam Shetke, Kelly Joy, Sean Alexander, Amy Stretton, Kim Fomby, Kelly Kirkendall, and Sylvia Mahan. Thank you so much for all of your work to put this event together. So a little bit about who we are. So Innovate Public Schools, we are seeking to build a movement in the Bay Area for world-class schools for all children, particularly underserved children. We work with parents, district leaders, educators, and others in the community to try to make this vision a reality. Besides Innovate's research work and all the work we do helping to organize families for better schools, we also help to launch new schools. So if you're interested in starting an amazing new school or trying to redesign a very low-performing school, our Startup Schools Fellowship might be just right for you. You can find out some information about that if you talk to us afterward. And then there's also information outside about our Entrepreneurs in Residence program, which is for very proven school leaders who want to try to launch an innovative new model school. Talk to us about that as well. We would love to work with you. So we hold this annual event really to draw attention to schools that are bucking the trend across the region, state, and nation. We want to highlight schools in the Bay Area where low-income Latino and low-income African American students are doing as well or better than the average student across the state. You are an incredible beacon of hope for so many other schools in the region. Other educators and school leaders should be like studying what you're doing, checking you out, looking under the hood, and trying to figure out what they can do to replicate the amazing work that you all are doing for children. This is, I think it's important, the other reason that we do this event is that the top schools in the Bay Area, many of you in the room, are putting a lie to the notion out there that low-income children in general just come with too many challenges, so we shouldn't expect schools to make miracles happen with them. That kind of soft and subtle racism rooted in low expectations is pernicious and wrong. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart for believing so deeply in all children. So all public schools, as you know, are not equal. They're not all equal. Some are failing, places where none of us would freely choose to send our own children. Most schools are mediocre, and some public schools are just amazing, amazing places of learning. The public deserves to know that, and our children obviously deserve those amazing ones. The question we always get is like, what's going on? What is going on at these top schools? How are they getting such incredible results? And here's what we know for sure. It's not random. While these schools that are represented here in the room today are very diverse in the way that they go about their program, there are like some very deep, important similarities that many of them have. These schools, you all, tend to be hyper-focused on first, aligning everything around this relentless mission that every child can achieve at a very high level. 2, amazing teachers, which means recruiting top talent and developing teachers every day to be amazing at their craft. 3, offering rigorous academics, not for some kids at the school, but for all the children at the school. 4, cultivating a culture of joyful learning. You go into great schools and you find generally a lot of people are working hard, but there's a lot of joy in what they're doing as well. 5, using data to drive the decision-making at the school. And 6, these top schools have often figured out a way to engage parents in the life of the school and the life of the educational life of their kids. So later in the program, you're going to hear more about the findings of our report and then some testimony from a parent, a student, and a principal at one of these great schools. Then it's going to be my pleasure to have a dialogue with the fabulous Ryan Smith from EdTrust West. And then we're going to invite you up on stage. We'll take a photo, and then there will be time to get to know each other at a reception where we'll have nice food and drink for all of you. So now, my pleasure to invite up Sylvia Mahan and Sierra Jenkins, who are going to lead us in a little something for the audience. Yeah.
Hey. Hi. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. Hi. We're excited to invite you all to participate tonight in our online poll this evening. And before we get started, can I ask Innovate staff to stand up? Anyone who's Innovate staff, please stand. We are scattered around the room, or we will be shortly. And so in case you have any technical difficulties, there should be a staff member. I don't know if some of you guys want to come over to this side. There should be a staff member near you to help out. So in order to access the poll, first of all, we want to get 100% participation in this evening. So can I ask all of you to take out your phones and hold them in the air so I can see how much participation we're getting? And we're not quite at 100%. It's looking good. Okay, awesome. So text this number, text the word poll to 37351. And you should receive a link within 1 to 2 minutes. Occasionally, for some people, the link won't come through. Not a problem. Just go to your browser and navigate to tinyurl.com/topschools2016. And as I said, the staff can help you if you have any questions or you're getting stuck. Just raise your hand and a staff member will come to you. And while we wait for you to receive that link, once you get the link, you can start taking the poll. Go ahead and do that. But while we wait for you to receive it, we're going to explain to you why we're doing this.
Sure. Hi, my name is Sierra Jenkins. I'm proud to be a member of the Innovate team here tonight. And what we're all about is about building a movement of the people that are in this room tonight. People who are running great schools, parents that are working to get the best thing for their kids and all kids in their community, students, community leaders, because all of us have an important role to play to actually pull this off, to pull off what we want, which is that every single kid in the Bay Area is getting a world-class public school education. And so a lot of people across the Bay want to hear from the people in this room. They want to know, hey, what should we be doing? What works? What makes the school work? What needs to happen so that we have 2 years, 3 years, 4 years from now, so many top schools that we don't fit in this room, because that's what we're working towards. And so we thought we'd go ahead and ask. And so that's what this poll is tonight. A little show of hands. How many people have gotten the link? How are we looking? Okay, looking pretty good. If you're having any trouble, go ahead and raise your hand, and somebody from Innovate staff will give a hand. And we'd love to hear your insights. We'll be sharing them out after the event. Everything's anonymous, so be candid. Preach the truth. We want to know what you really think. And we'll be sharing that out at the end of the program tonight, and also with folks who weren't able to make it out tonight, because there's a lot of folks across the Bay that are part of making this happen. So thanks so much.
Yeah, and as Sierra said, we'll be sharing the answers anonymously, so don't worry. You just say what you want, and it'll be shared on the screens during the reception too. So take a look at that during the reception, and if that sparks your interest and you want to share your thoughts while you're having conversations, we definitely encourage that too. And okay, last show of hands. Anyone having trouble? Okay, guys, this is awesome. Also, while you've got your phones out, once you finish the poll, please finish the poll. Once you finish the poll, please go ahead and give us a follow on Twitter and a like on Facebook, and use the hashtag #TopSchoolsTonight for your photos and comments. All right, thank you all.
Good evening. My name is Carol Hedgepeth. I'm the Director of Research and Policy at Innovate Public Schools, and it is a high honor to see all of you here tonight to celebrate the amazing work that you all are doing across the Bay Area. Tonight, I am going to be sharing with you, in the time I have, the key findings from our Top Schools report. This is the second annual report. There was one that we did last year. And so I'll provide the findings from this year's report. It is in your bag if you want to follow along with me. Because we have limited time, it might be easier if you look at the graphs there, or I'll be giving you some information here. So Matt is right that the work that we do here at Innovate Public Schools is all about making sure that there are world-class schools available and accessible across the Bay Area. And part of that work is identifying those schools that are really doing it well and holding them up as a model. And so the purpose of our report is to really figure out which schools are actively working to close the achievement gap. Achievement gap is one of those terms where it's like, what does that mean? But the achievement gap, as we all know, is that gap between the lower performing and the higher performing students in a school. And we figure that out and look at that in terms of state test results. So in this report, we look at the state test results across schools in the Bay Area and see who is working to actively close the achievement gap. What we find when we look at underserved students, what we mean by that are typically low-income African American and low-income Latino students. They historically have performed less well on standardized tests. They also have been underserved in their communities for various reasons. But we're not talking about a small number of students. We typically refer to them as a subgroup, a small group. You would think that they're a small group. But when we look at the data and we look at who's enrolled in our schools, we see that over half of the schools, only over half of the students enrolled in the state of California are low-income students, and that the majority of those low-income students are low-income Latino and low-income African American students. So we're talking about the performance of a significant group of students when we're talking about schools serving underserved students. So it's important to see their performance, and it's important to look at schools and which schools are serving them across the state, but particularly in the Bay Area. So our report has as a goal to do that. Like all of the reports that Innovate Public Schools publishes, we like to show the pain and the promise of our schools. And there is pain, but there's also promise. And the 47 schools really show that things can be done and that achievement gaps can be closed. What we've seen and what has been talked about a lot for this year's state test scores is that overall, the Bay Area has outperformed the state. So students in the Bay Area, on the average, have done better in English and math this year than the state average. That's good news. Another piece of good news is that overall in the Bay Area and overall in the state, there have been these improvements. However, if you look deeper into the data, you see that there are still very big achievement gaps across student groups and across income levels. And that's where we get to see that there are differing levels of performance based on who the student is. And we know in our heart of hearts that that's an equity issue. That's an access issue. Part of the pain of this story is that low-income African American and low-income Latino students are underperforming compared to their peers, and that's the historically underserved group that Innovate Public Schools has been looking at. And so we want to look at schools that are serving those students well. Here is a picture of the achievement gap. Looking at the percentage of Bay Area students that are meeting standards in math this year, we see that there is a more than 60% gap, in fact, more than 70% gap between the highest performing students and the lowest performing students. And that, pressed the wrong button. And that the lowest performing students are typically African American and low-income African American and low-income Latino students. The big takeaway from this particular graph is that the achievement gap is both an income-driven. There are differences across income levels, and there's also differences across the racial groups. But these are the students that are struggling, and it is at the school level that we want to look at the schools that are serving these students well. This graph is one that shows that in the Bay Area, low-income African American and low-income Latino students are underperforming more so than other areas in the state. I love this chart. I love data, but this chart is particularly striking to me, and let me tell you why. Usually when you see charts of performance, proficiency rates, you see the top bars. These bars show who is at or above the state standard in both English and math, across income and across racial groups. So this is the group of students that are performing above the state standard. For the state, this is for the state, and this is for the Bay Area. What the key takeaway of this graph is that typically you don't see who's below. And just at a glance, what you should be able to take away from here is that the students performing below the state standard, these red bars, are so much bigger and longer than the purple bars or the blue bars. And our goal and high hope is that these bars are bigger than the little bars. So we have a lot of work to do. But what's particularly striking, and what I think we need to think about throughout the course of the night, is that in the Bay Area, these red bars, the bars that are below proficiency, are even longer in the Bay Area than they are in the state, all across the board. So we've got even more work to do in the Bay Area. That's a big takeaway, that's a big finding, and it's something that we should know about, but that we don't really hear about or think about. We do think that we're doing really well in the Bay Area, and in a lot of places we are, but the data seems to suggest, well, it doesn't seem to suggest, it actually tells us that we have lots of work to do in the Bay Area in order to even match what's happening in the state, which needs improvement. So that's the pain. But you all and the 42 schools that we're honoring tonight are the promise. It is your schools are schools that show higher purple and blue bars. You all have shown that you all have served your low-income African American and low-income Latino students in a way such that their test scores have beat out the state average proficiency for all students. And that is, in effect, closing the achievement gap. If the underserved students are beating the average student in the state, then you're effectively doing really good work towards closing the achievement gap. And so you are the promise, and we applaud you, and we're honoring you tonight. There were 47 of you, 47 schools. How did we get to that 47? Well, I'll show you. There are 1,211 Bay Area schools, middle, elementary, and high schools in the Bay Area. From that population of schools, we looked at schools that only serve at least the state average of low-income Latino students, which is the state average is 43.3%. The average school serves 43.3%. And the average school serves 4.3% of low-income African American students. So whittling down from the 1,200 schools down to 568. And then from there, we looked at those schools whose proficiency rates for those subgroups beat the state average for all students. That's how we got to 47. In the 10 seconds that I have left, I want to tell you that the work that you all do is great, but I think that we all need to be mindful of the fact that while you are doing fantastic work, and your work should be modeled for other schools should be models for other schools, we need to acknowledge that 47 schools is not enough, and we need to work harder, faster, stronger, better in order to get more. So work with us, join us, look at our work at Innovate, and get involved so that we can make sure that next year there are more than 47 schools. Thank you. And next in our program, we will be hearing from 3 guests who will offer their insights about what it takes to make top performing schools and their experiences in those. Our first speaker is a school leader. We'll hear from Principal Catherine Acosta Verprauskas, principal of Montalvan Manor Elementary School.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Acosta Verprauskas, and I'm really impressed that you were able to do that so well. Generally, it gets butchered. I am the principal of Montalvan Manor Elementary School in unincorporated San Pablo, and I'm incredibly honored to get the opportunity to share with you today what I think makes Montalvan successful and really what's been at the core of our success with low-income Latino and African American students. I believe that our biggest asset is our teachers and our parents, and we are very intentional at Montalvan in supporting and developing these 2 groups of stakeholders to make sure that every one of our students is able to meet our big goal by the end of the year. Teachers are incredibly important, and I'm sure many of you in this room agree with me. They're the direct line to students, and as a school leader, I invest time and a lot of money in developing them and creating systems as a leader and structures to support their consistent collaboration at school. At Montalvan, we believe that everyone should be using data to drive our instruction, and I'm sure many of you and the schools represented do that too. So what does that really look like at Montalvan? At Montalvan, teachers have 1 full day a month where they get released from the classroom with the use of substitutes, and all they do all day is they look at student assessment results. They look at the results to see what worked in the classroom and what didn't work with students. And together as a team, the teachers create a plan of corrective action to make sure that every single student that didn't master the standard that we wanted them to master is able to do so before the next assessment period. Teachers aren't just going to teach the same lesson again, just a little bit slower and really loud. They're going to closely analyze and see where the student misconception was and where it occurred in their teaching so that they can teach it differently the next time and really support students in learning. Not everybody gets it the first time, right? The second, the third, the fourth, the fifth. We'll do as teachers, and we really partner in this work together. I'm part of those meetings. We'll do whatever it takes to make sure that every single student is able to master that focus standard. Teachers communicate the progress and plan with students and family. And as a school, we celebrate, and we celebrate all the time, the hard work and the growth the students are making each benchmark period. Just yesterday, we held our mid-year celebration, the Star Dance, and everybody for the past month has been talking about the Star Dance and how you get in. And really, we're honoring the work based on the assessment results the students are doing to see if they're on track to meet our big year goal by the end of the year. And I'm proud to say that yesterday, over 400 students earned a ticket to the dance. That means that they're on track, which is really exciting. It's hard to imagine, but I wore a blue wig and I had a big KU Jayhawks hat because that's where I went to college, and I was DJ AV. And kids were just incredibly pumped and energized about their success and their hard work. And alongside their families, their teachers, and their principal, they danced up a storm. And I'm telling you, my feet are still aching from all the dancing we did yesterday. At Montalvan, we also believe that parents are incredibly important. And we know we can't do this work alone. We value parent partnership, and we invest in their development as well. We have Parent University, and it's a 10-week series that provides families the opportunity to collaborate and learn alongside each other. And they learn key information about Common Core and what does that really mean and what changes came with that and how funding works at our schools. For example, last week, one of the sessions was around developing and practicing with each other the type of student achievement focused questions that a parent can engage the teacher with during parent-teacher conferences. Parents play a huge role in making programs run effectively at Montalvan, from volunteering daily with me to help facilitate Kinder Lunch, opening 150 milks and packages that make schools, run effectively, to representing us district-wide at our LCAP meetings and really advocating for schools like Montalvan, Title I, and high-need schools to make sure that we can get every single dollar to make our students successful. Our school would not be successful without parents to help run it. It is the hard work of both of these groups, parents and teachers, that make our student success possible at Montalvan. I'm incredibly honored as the leader to just help facilitate this collaboration and partnership. And it's what we plan to continue to do because, like you mentioned, we're only about halfway there at Montalvan. And so we really need to roll up our sleeves to make sure that one of these days we're up here celebrating that every single student at our school is able to meet or exceed our expectations. So I want to thank you, and I want to congratulate every single school that's here.
Thank you, Catherine. Next, we'll hear from Kyle Dent. He is a senior at Lighthouse Community Charter School. Kyle.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kyle, and I've been going to Lighthouse for about 3 years now. I've lived in the Bay Area my whole life, and I'm a senior now. I love writing about how the world got where it is. I always get wrapped up in that, but other priorities always end up falling behind, which I know definitely frustrates my mother. She had been trying to get me into Lighthouse since about 5th grade, and as she puts it, she was fed up with traditional schools around us. So she started exploring other options on the internet and stuff. And then on one such search, she found Lighthouse, and she put me and my She put me and my sister in our car, and she drove us out from Hayward to Oakland, and she took us in for the information meeting. And so we walked into the building, and as my mom has mentioned several times since then, she took a long glance around, and she just cried. She said it felt like home. And, I'll admit, crying is an extreme reaction, but my mom really fell in love. From then on, every year, my mom went to these meetings over and over trying to get me into this school, but I never got in because they dedicate themselves to these small class sizes. Every year, she set her hopes on the next year until 2013, which was my first year. When I first got there, though, I kind of had this elitist, isolated state of mind. It didn't really get me anywhere, though, because it somehow took me 2 months to realize that I didn't really have any friends, and I got sick of that. So slowly, I tried to make some. In crew, our advisory type class, I met my best friends, and I've been with them for about 4 years now. And it's not just my friends, like I said, my senior class has about 50-ish people in it, and we all feel connected, kind of like a team. And it's all just because of how the school works with us. We're never by ourselves in class. We're all responsible for teaching one another. It's at Lighthouse that I grew in a lot of things I never thought I'd be good at. Math was something I'd hated for a long time, just because I personally thought I was bad at it. But I came into 11th grade math analysis with this mentality. I just assumed I'd get nothing done. In past years, I'd walk into math class, I'd struggle and not really ask questions, I wouldn't really get anywhere, and then I'd just go on to my next class. I just didn't try because I thought I'd never really learn a lot. But in 11th grade, it kind of just clicked. Our math curriculum was based more around why stuff happened instead of just how, about the relationships between things instead of just putting them into separate boxes. When I have trouble with my teacher, Miss Lee, she'd come over and she'd write something else down that was kind of related. And she'd say, why does this happen? And so, I'd sit there kind of just thinking, and then it just clicked for me. It actually made math kind of fun, which is something I never thought I'd say out loud, let alone in front of all of you. Miss Lee's style of teaching helped me a lot, and a lot of people I know as well. I've seen this form of teaching spreading into the lower grades, and some of my friends have the same love-hate relationship with math that I do, oh my God, and now we finally feel like we understand, We're not just remembering stuff for a test and then immediately forgetting it. I don't really want to turn this into a sob story, but recently things have been a bit tough for my family. We rent our house, and one afternoon, the owner of the house just gave us 60 days to move out, and we lived there for 15 years, and my mom had set up her business in our house. We had a home daycare, and now all that was just being ripped up and ripped away, and my mom's business was devastated. By some other coincidence, my dad lost his job, and my grandma who lived with me, she had a stroke and died just like that. And I like to be an optimist, right? Things always end up being okay, but this time seemed like it could be different. And, I mentioned some of this stuff just like offhandedly at school, and some people just jumped to help. They asked if I needed help packing. Others stopped me in the halls to ask how I was doing, if I needed help. Community isn't just a buzzword at this school. It's a real thing, and this is one out of just hundreds of examples. Plus, Lighthouse makes me feel like I have an idea of what I'm doing. We have something called Passage in 10th grade. And so we had to write essays about ourselves and about how we feel about learning. And then we participated in interviews with people in the community. And so, I didn't really see the point at first. I was 14. But its effects have started cropping up lately. Having to think about why learning is important to me made me realize what I wanted to do with my life, why I wanted to go to college. It was no longer something that I had to do, but something that I felt like I needed to do. This interview gave me some stress, and I've noticed that after that first one, I did great in all other interviews I had, such as one for an internship and another for a scholarship. Our college and career prep class was a big help as well. I'm still a little terrified of the future, but I've learned a lot with the internship program. I interned at 826 Valencia, and that really taught me how to add more commitments into my day. The class also helped me realize that college wasn't something that'd be horribly hard to achieve. I learned all the steps, and I got rid of a lot of the stress I had building up. If I was going to really any other school, I'd take the easy way out. But at Lighthouse, they forced me to actually try, They make me look at places and majors that are right for me, so I don't totally mess up my future. I know now that I want to major in screenwriting and maybe minor in history at UC Davis. I want to write for TV shows, and though it might be unlikely, the dream is comedian. Nothing can totally prepare me for the future, but I have some idea of what I want to do now. I've come a long way since I was this awkward 13-year-old cynic, but now, because of the Lighthouse community, I know I'm ready to take on the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kyle. Finally, we will hear from Roxana Enriquez, who is a parent leader with Innovate Public Schools.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, we've been sitting here about 30 minutes already. I don't know about you, but I cannot sit in a chair all the time for that long, okay? So I'm going to ask everyone to please extend your left arm in front of you, okay? And we're going to inhale with your finger. Inhale up. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. 2 more times. Inhale. Exhale. Breathe in and out. 1 more time. Breathe in and out. That feels much better. All right. My name is Roxana Enriquez. I am representing all the parents in my community and KIP Excelencia Community Prep in Redwood City. and all the parent leaders of Innovate Public Schools. We all are here to do better. Education is important because you are able to learn about how does the world work around us. Education is not equal for all children. That is why I stay active and engaged in my children's education. I grew up in Redwood City District, and it just didn't work for me. I ended up in the juvenile justice system because I made the wrong choices in life and didn't have anyone in my family to guide me or support me. I didn't graduate on time because I was in and out of juvenile hall. I struggled, and I ended up working in my high school diploma while attending community college. Then I transferred to San Jose State, where I'm thinking about going to law school now. I became pregnant at 19 years old with my first son, and I was 20 years old with my daughter. I didn't know how to be a parent at the beginning, but I sure didn't want to I don't want my children to end up in jail like I did. I wanted, like every other parent want, and that is them to go to college. So I learned a lot about parenting as I could. I think many parents are in this situation where we didn't receive the adequate resources and education ourselves. So how can we teach our kids, not knowing ourselves the importance of education? Sometimes parents don't always feel empowered to help our kids. It takes courage from us parents to ask for help and find the resources we need. Sometimes parents don't feel empowered to help our kids, but I have been determined to break the cycle of poverty and help my children become better persons than me. It takes courage from us parents to ask for help, as I mentioned, and finding the resources we need. I believe schools need to provide resources to educate parents in how to be parents. When it was time to look for a school for my kids, I knew that in Redwood City schools, they were bad. It had a bad reputation. There was lack of strong options for my kids. Scores were low, and heard about schools, especially weak for Latinos, and unfortunately, it hasn't changed. I had always been told Latinos and African Americans don't know how to discipline their kids. Latinos don't know how to be parents, and that is what made the schools worse. But then I realized it also the responsibility of the school system. It's also the responsibility of the school system to adapt to kids and families. And that's when I heard about 2 new schools opening in my city, were Rocket Ship and KIPP. So I started going to the meetings and loved what I saw. I really got involved in I got already involved in parent leadership at KIPP because it was really structured. I already had knowledge of PTAs and leadership from previous preschool, so I felt this was the right place for me to contribute. Building relationship with other parents and help the schools. I fell in love with the high expectations that made the kids rise up. I saw great results with my kids and other kids. KIPP has dedicated staff. They focus on literacy half of the day. Teachers share data with students and us parents. They communicate well, so we know about the plan that our children are working on. The teachers and kids are motivated because if it's not for the teachers, who else is gonna help our kids strive? They will always remember that special teacher who told them, "You could do it. Never give up on your dreams." Our principal, Kyle, never sits behind the desk. He always has energy and interacts with our kids. My children practice kindness and empathy every day. They take care of each other. I also work with Innovate Public Schools, and they have taught me how to do community organizing because I want to help the education in the whole city improve. I believe we need more excellent schools like KIPP, and I will keep fighting because we are our children's role models. So one day, those kids can be the leaders in our community.
I am grateful to the families who fought for KIP Excelencia. Originally, because if it wasn't for them, I would not be involved or making the changes that I'm doing now to help improve schools in our community. You all know about the school to prison pipeline. This all makes sense to me. We have to work together. I thought I wanted to become a probation officer because they made an impact in my life, and I become a yoga instructor. Now I help heal trauma, incarcerated youth to get in, to stay away from the system. But then I thought about it. I want to prevent children from even entering the juvenile system. And that is to help them get to school in the educational system. Going to college myself has helped me become a better mother and a better mentor to guide my children. I am committed for equal access to schools for all children. I know my time's up, but I got a couple more sentences. Being a parent leader has changed me. I see how much these parents who look familiar to my parents show interest in their children's future. These parents motivate me. They show up to all the important meetings. Their presence are just so powerful to me. Having excellent schools and strong parent involvement is very important in low-income communities because education makes a big difference and makes everyone a better human for the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Roxana. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Catherine. Thanks to all of you speakers for sharing your views and your experiences. At this point in our program, we are going to have a conversation between Matt Hammer, the founder and CEO of Innovate, and Ryan J. Smith, who is the executive director at the Education Trust West. And I did that on time.
I think that's good. All right, Ryan. So I'm going to introduce you here first. So it's my great pleasure to be up here on stage with you. Thanks so much for making time for us this evening. So Ryan is our featured guest, and I'm gonna read his intro so I don't miss anything. So Ryan is a major leader in the state. Has been doing lots of work for really his whole career around the kids that we are most concerned about. After we hear some from Ryan, you're going to get a chance to ask him some questions if we have a little bit of time. So there's some postcards around, so feel free to write your questions on those. So Ryan Smith is the executive director of the Education Trust West, a research and advocacy organization focused on educational justice and the high academic achievement for all California students, particularly those of color and living in poverty. Since taking the helm of Ed Trust West, Ryan led the team's development and production of the 2015 report Black Minds Matter, supporting the educational success of Black children in California, a report championed by the California Legislative Black Caucus. Really recommend this report. You got to read it. Black Minds Matter. It's never really been more important than now. So prior to joining the Education Trust West, Ryan was the Director of Education Programs and Policy for the United Way of Greater LA. Ryan also worked for former Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa's Partnership for Los Angeles Schools. In his role as Senior Director of Family and Community Engagement, Ryan led a team that improved parent involvement by over 40%. Ryan was also a youth organizer and a volunteer teacher in Mexico City and Cuernavaca. Ryan has authored more than a dozen editorials and opinion pieces published in the LA Times, the Chronicle, Sacramento Bee, Education Week, U.S. News and World Report, and others. He was named by Education Week as one of the 10 education leaders to watch nationally. So we're watching you, Ryan. And also received the Family and Schools Parent Engagement Leader of the Year Award. So really great to be up here with you, Ryan. Appreciate you making some time for this evening and sharing some of your thoughts about where we are in public education in California and nationally. So just want to start it off by I don't know if we call it the elephant in the room or what, but it's like on everybody's mind, the election. And so barring some strange, unforeseen happening, Donald Trump is going to be our next president.
I've heard.
You have heard, right. So his victory has stirred up really a new wave of racism and xenophobia in our country. I just wanted some of your reflections on how you think that is going to impact our collective efforts to try to create amazing schools for all kids.
Yeah, first I'll start on a positive note.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm really happy to be here, and I've gone a full day in conferences, but there is nothing more inspirational than hearing parents, school leaders, educators, teachers really talking about how they're supporting our students writ large. So you picked me up. You really gave me energy to continue the rest of this evening. So thank you for the work that you do. And thank you. And we know it's only the hard work of educators and teachers and parents who close achievement opportunity gaps. So thank you so much. Now on to Trump.
Yeah.
So, whether you're on the right or the left, because I don't want this to become an issue of politics, I think the challenging thing that we've seen in this election cycle is the normalization of things that should not be normalized.
Right.
To hear the type of rhetoric that we heard in this election cycle that actually I don't even want to repeat because we have students in the room really does hurt my heart. I don't care who's president, although I think it's really important who is president. I think at the end of the day, we need to set an example for the students who go to our school what the standard is. Mm-hmm. And the standard is we respect everyone no matter what the religious background is, no matter where they came from, no matter what the color of their skin is, no matter where they grew up in their zip code. And even though we may have heard things that we shouldn't have heard in this election cycle, it's up to us to double down and make sure that we are setting the standards for our students. And I told my staff this. You may remember the story of Ruby Bridges. She was a young lady who desegregated. She was maybe first grade, desegregated schools in New Orleans. You may remember the Norman Rockwell picture of her being escorted by adult National Guards to school, 6-year-old. And when they asked her, well, how did you do that? How did you actually do that as a girl, as a young girl? And she says, I remember there was a woman who was holding a casket with a black baby doll, pointing to it and saying, you'll be next. You'll be next. And she said, all I did was prayed and put one foot in front of the other. And I think our goal right now, no matter where you come from, is that we put one foot in front of the other for the type of justice issues that we really care about, particularly for those in this room who advocate on behalf of youth. So have a great holiday, because I'm going to need you to be really focused and double down on the work when we come back in the new year.
That's right. That's right. Thank you, Ryan. So, one of the findings of our report, part of the bad news for the Bay Area that surprises a lot of people, not that there's an achievement gap necessarily, but that the gap is even worse in the Bay Area than in the rest of the state, that actually these subgroups of low-income kids are actually doing a little bit worse in the Bay Area than they are elsewhere. And I think a lot of people assume that, we're like this rich, fancy place. It must be that all kids must be doing at least a little bit better than kids in other parts of the state. But our report found that that's not true, and I'm just curious if you've got any reflections about that and sort of any shining a light on how that might be so.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. The data show that even though we have higher income school districts, and that some of those school districts do fund schools at higher levels, we know that money doesn't always equal outcomes. Mm-hmm. And it's about what you do with resources that matters, what you're doing in the classroom, what you're doing instructionally. We heard a really amazing school leader talking about how she's meeting the needs of students. So it's not just about resources, it's about how we're actually using those resources, how we're scaling evidence-based practices for change. So that's one. The second thing I'll say, it's actually easier in higher income communities to forget those in poverty. I know I'm in San Francisco all the time, and I count the amount of people who walk past someone who's homeless. Sometimes it's easier for us to forget, and unfortunately, sometimes when you're a progressive community, you say, I'm progressive, but you may forget about the school that you're passing where students are failing. You can't be both progressive and not supporting schools that should be successful, or thinking about how do we change systems that are failing students. Yep. So you could it's not about talking the talk. I mean, it's not about talking the talk, it's about walking the walk. And I like to say this because everybody talks about equity. How many of us have heard the word equity? So equity has become the new coconut water, I like to say, right? It's the trend we're all talking about, but not everybody's necessarily drinking. And my goal, leading an organization that focuses on equity and research and policy around equity, is that we see the outcomes in equity that matter. It's not just us talking about it, it's us walking that talk. And if we can do that more, that's gonna be important. That's why it's so great, the work that Innovate is doing right now. Because they're not just talking the talk, they're looking at the data and saying, wait a minute, there's schools that we should be moving the needle. There's no reason why we are one of the richest cities and communities in this country and we have schools that are failing. And it's only through the data and it's only through the organizing that's happening that we'll see a change in that. So I'm not surprised, but it's time for us not to cover our eyes in high-income communities.
Great, thanks, Ryan. So there was a lot of talk during the campaign about income inequality here and elsewhere growing pretty dramatically with the haves and have-nots and just the huge gap. And clearly the data shows that low-income kids are often getting a second-rate education. At the same time, there are these huge gaps based on race. Both of our organizations, address the reality and try to speak the truth about the reality of persistent racism in a lot of these public education systems and other systems. And I'm just curious about some of your reflections about, why is it that we need to keep talking about race in public education?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. One, our report that came out, Black Minds Matter, showed that if we don't do something, if we continue at the current trajectory, all Black students won't meet standards in math until the year 2057. Our next report, the majority report, that talks about how we support Latino students, the largest percentage of this. By the way, the vernacular needs to change, right? We call Black students and low-income students and English learners, we call them subgroups. In California, they're the group of students. 3 out of 5 students are either Black or brown. 1 out of 5 students are English learners. We talk about, a quarter of our students, or 3/4 of our students are low income. We have work to do. So I don't like to say subgroups or minorities because they're really the majority. But the majority of Latino students won't meet math standards until the year 2041. And if we want to talk about English learners wouldn't meet math standards to the year 2103. None of us would be around. So when we talk about closing achievement gaps, we need to think about it with a sense of urgency. How do we really change the dynamic? And I know this is absolutely an issue of income too. And at the macro level, we need to be talking about ways to reduce poverty. We need to be talking about the criminal justice system. We need to be talking about housing. But when we talk about what an individual can do to get out of poverty, education's still it. And unfortunately, even though we can talk about income, and this election shows that we need to be talking a lot more about income and across the country. If you're Black and brown and poor, you're doubly disadvantaged. You have more that you have to do. And we almost forget it. I'm listening to the news, but you would think there was no Black or brown working class people. The news, working class has been equated with just white people, when we know that if after the recession, Black and Latino populations still have not recovered from the Great Recession when it comes to unemployment. So we have to talk about that. And this is the last data point I'll talk about because I think income's really powerful. But right now in this state, poor white students do better than middle income Black students. So this can't just be an issue of race. And I'm not saying this is attributed to communities. We are doing something within systems to disadvantage those who are Black and brown, disadvantage Southeast Asian students, Cambodian students, Hmong students, students that we should be talking about as well. We're doing something. There are decisions we're making within systems that we need to address.
Great, thanks. Okay. So, as you know, there are only 47 schools around the whole Bay Area, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of schools that meet this bar, closing the achievement gap through our report. What do you think are some of the barriers why there aren't more schools on that list?
Yeah, first of all, if you work or are part of one of those 47, can you raise your hand? Can you give them a round of applause again? Like that is really amazing. I bow down. You guys are on the front lines of the work, and I appreciate that. But how sobering was it to look at that presentation and to see over 1,000 schools and only 47 that met that standard? We have work to do, because we should be talking about 147. We really should be talking about 600, 700 schools meeting that standard. So, Matt, I think there's a couple things that we need to focus on as a community. One, we need to uplift the 47. What are you doing differently? What are you doing that others aren't? Because you don't have different students. These students aren't from Bel Air. They're not from the hills in Oakland. Many of you these are low-income students and students of color. So why aren't we doing more research within your school so that we can replicate that? That's the first thing. Number two, we need to invest in our educators. We need to do everything possible to have quality educators in front of our students. We do everything possible to make sure they're getting the best professional development, particularly if you're teaching in low-income communities and communities of color. We do everything possible to think differently about our students. Let's be truthful. There's still a belief gap about who these students are. That's right. And, you know, I said this today, and it still pains me to say this. I am very supportive of our governor, Governor Brown. He is an absolute progressive. He instituted the local control funding formula that gives more money to schools with high concentrations of low-income students and English learners and foster youth. On the record, when they asked him, would that policy close achievement and opportunity gaps, you know what he said? He said, close achievement gaps. Why would you say that? If we close achievement gaps, then who would wash our windows? Who would wait our tables? Would we get robots for that? Now, unfortunately, Matt, he's not talking about white high-income students. He's talking about poor Black and brown children, that we need those students, not to take on college and career-ready courses so that we have a labor class. I think that means we are not all on the same page about why we're doing equity work.
That's right.
So it is important that the 47 doubles from this year, and then from there it triples, and that we ask you, school leaders, and you, families and communities, to do everything possible to spread the word about how we need more quality schools in this region, and how we need more political power. Hearing those parents speak, I'm scared. Those parents run for school board. I'm scared of those parents. Have nothing, you know, and I worked with parents for a very long time. You know, I worked with parents in DF in Mexico City. They, you know, my name was Chocolatote Grandote, giant chocolate, to my students and to my families. And then I work with parents in places like South LA and Watts and Boyle Heights, where people didn't believe parents actually made a difference, where they believed, well, they worked 2 jobs. Or some people didn't believe they cared. But what I saw is there is nothing like mothers talking to mothers in communities like Watts. There's nothing like mothers talking to mothers in places like South LA and East LA. I am sure that's the same case here. And my mother's from East Palo Alto, so I know that's the case. There is nothing like it. And if we're not investing in our parents, building the type of social capital necessary for change, then we're never going to build the movement. So that's why Innovate is special. Innovate is doing the movement building that we have not done in the educational change space. And if we're going to change the electoral politics that we just saw happen in the election, my apologies, yes, I am a Democrat, so I do feel a certain way, then we're never going to see education actually prioritized in the agenda. And who heard about education during the election? K-12 education. They talked early ed, they talked higher ed, they didn't talk K-12, where the majority of our students are. Yeah. So we have to change that, and it's the work of Innovate that's going to do that.
Great. Thank you.
I'm waiting for you to change the world, man. I know you're working on it.
All right, we appreciate that, Ryan. So we're almost out of time. We got like a few great questions. I gotta say, this one is a special one. My daughter turned 11 today, so I gotta run out of here soon and go have dinner with her, or I'm gonna get in big trouble. So this is another 10-year-old. So raise your hand if the 10-year-old from KIPP who wrote this question. All right, thank you. So this is great. It says, there's more to it, but one part of the question is, do you love what you do?
Oh, what a really good
Isn't that
question.
a great question?
That's the best question I've gotten all day.
Yeah.
I absolutely love what I do with a passion.
I love what I do too.
There is nothing like it. You know, I sit here today because I had a single mother who literally spent her life savings to move from one community to another because she heard that high school actually graduated young black men onto college. And the reason why that story's so important to me is, number one, it's the reason I sit in this chair. Number two, we had a report from Trust West that 20 years later said that, guess what? That school district did the best in actually educating young black men to go to college. So I tell my mom she's a researcher, and she didn't even know it. But number three, it made me mad. It made me mad because no parent should have to spend their entire life savings to move from one community to another for quality public schools. There should be quality public schools in every community. As taxpayers, as people who care about our work, that is required. And I never want to have to see another parent spend their life savings to educate their children. So I love what I do because I get to advocate on behalf of you every day. And I get to tell your story.
All right. I think we're out of.
Sorry, I talked too much.
No, you didn't. You did perfect. Maybe just let's wrap up, Ryan, with just a little bit more of the good news. So, what is just one or two other things that are giving you hope right now?
Yeah.
I know it's hard in a lot of our communities. A lot of the communities where Innovate is working, as with you, people are really fearful. Haven't experienced this level of feeling like attacks coming from now, the most powerful guy in the world. People are worried about, are they going to be able to stay in this country? So there's a lot to be concerned about, but there's also a lot to be hopeful about. So
Absolutely.
Give us a little more light, Mr. Smith.
Let's leave on hope. So there's a couple things to be hopeful about.
Yeah.
One, we see progress. So we should not talk about the progress. We've seen progress in the state in educating low-income students and students of color. We see more low-income students and students of color going on to higher education than we've seen before, and those things are exciting. And those are things that we need to rally behind. The fact that we're even having a conversation about equity is good. The fact that it's on people's radars is good because we can continue to build upon that. Yep. I think this election actually presents an opportunity. I come from coalition building, and it's unfortunate because oftentimes, even though we're 80% aligned on issues, it's usually the 20% of the things we don't agree on that keeps us from partnering. Well, I'll say this, after this election, there has not been a partner who said, let's put aside our differences and fight for our students together. Mm-hmm. And I think there is an opportunity for us to come together to fight a good fight. And, I tweeted this, I try to tweet. I'm a little bit of a grandpa, but I try to tweet.
I just learned to.
And, the one thing is, we can't let those who traffic in hate stop those who work for the good rooted in love.
That's right.
And the work we do right now is absolutely rooted in love, and love always overcomes hate, even when it doesn't seem like it. So we have an opportunity to do good, and may we do it.
Good. All right. Well, let's end on that hopeful note. Thank you, Ryan.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. All right. So we are going to transition toward the end of this, which involves some of you all coming up to snap a photo. And I think we need to move this. It's heavy. All right. So it is now my pleasure to, we're going to do the official recognition of the 47 schools. We got a bunch of people said, got some messages like traffic was killer today. So once we fix education, we're going to then fix the really hard problem in the Bay Area is traffic. So What we're going to do is ask for 2 representatives from each school when I read your school's name to come up, and we're going to have some helpers to line you up in a couple nice rows here. So 2 representatives from each school, just 2. So when you hear your school's name, if you could come up, the 2 of you. So here they are. American Indian Public Charter, American Indian Public Charter School 2. And hold your applause till the end, and we'll do a lot of applause at the end. American Indian Public Charter School 2.
Do you want us to do the poll results? Because we were on that.
Oops, yes, I'm sorry. Bad peripheral vision. Come on up. We're pausing. Yeah.
Okay, hi. I'm sorry. Can you hear me? No? Can I do this mic?
Yeah, turn it on.
Can I do this mic? Oh, you can hear me now? Okay, great. All right, awesome. Sorry to interrupt the photos. We did promise you that we would show you the results of the poll, and I'm wondering if we have them. Are they on? Yeah, there they are. Okay, great. So we just wanted to share this with you all. We had really good participation, so thank you all for sharing your thoughts. About half of respondents were school leaders and teachers. And the other half community members and other folks who we will investigate who those others are, and a few elected officials. Next slide. So which of the following do you believe is the greatest barrier to success? And what we see here is that this is the response from school leaders and teachers, and actually it's really similar to the response that we got from everyone else. And the 3 greatest areas that you called out were lack of qualified teachers and teacher turnover, school staff having low expectations of students, and ineffective development and training of teachers. So, we see that lack of funding is actually really low on the list, and I think that might be surprising to a lot of people, but it's an interesting thing to think about, which is that, school funding comes up a lot in conversations, and what we're seeing here is that a lot of people see that, obviously schools need more resources, but also there's a lot of other things that we can focus on and improve. Next slide. This is the response from others in the community, and you'll see it's very similar. The weak schools district leadership category was a little bit higher from the non-school leaders, which is maybe not surprising. But also, I think the more interesting thing is that overall the results are very similar. So there's a lot of agreement on the things that are barriers to success. Thank you all, and I hope you have a great time at the reception discussing these results. Thanks.
Thank you, Sylvia. Okay, so back from the top. So come on up, 2 people from each organization, each school. American Indian Public Charter, American Indian Public Charter School 2, Aspire East Palo Alto Charter, Aspire Lionel Wilson College Prep Academy, Canoas Elementary, Cleveland Elementary, Crittenton Middle, E.M. Grimmer Elementary, Gilroy Prep, Hannah Ranch Elementary, Highland Elementary, Ida Jew Academies, Impact Academy of Arts and Technology, Junipero Serra Elementary, Catherine Hughes Elementary, KIP Bayview Academy, KIP Excelencia Community Prep, KIP Heartwood Academy, KIP Heritage Academy, KIP Prize Preparatory Academy. There's 3 more KIPs. KIP San Jose Bay Academy, KIP San Francisco College Prep, and KIP Summit Academy. Leadership Public Schools Hayward, Leadership Public Schools Richmond, Lighthouse Community Charter High, Los Medanos Elementary, Making Waves Academy, Mission Prep, Montalvan Manor Elementary, Oakland Unity High, Orchard Park, Peralta Elementary, Pescadero High, Richmond Charter Academy, Richmond College Preparatory, Rocket Ship Alma Academy, Rocket Ship Discovery Prep, Rocket Ship Mateo Shidi, Rocket Ship Mosaic, 2 more rocket ships, Si Se Puede Academy and Rocket Ship Spark Academy, Rod Kelly Elementary, Sherman Elementary, that was Sherman Elementary, Summit Prep Charter High, Thomas Edison Charter Academy, and last but not least, starting with the V, is Voices College Bound Language Academy. Come on up. So let's give these amazing leaders a huge round of applause for the extraordinary work that they do. Hold on. Does everybody see Charles? No. We good? All right. Thank you, everybody. So thanks. We are going to excuse everybody to go out and have some food and drink. There's a fun photo booth out there. Just want to say that I hope you'll take the chance to get to know some other people, share some about what's working at your schools. And thanks so much for coming out. You can pick up your banners. There's banners and certificates outside for every school. Thanks.
You're moving to the rock and sound. You have to understand.